So, friends, question for you. How many Jews are there in the world? Somebody.
10 or 11 million.
10 or 11 million. 15 million. 16, 17 million. Sold. And Michael Sigmund has bought them all. God help you. To be honest, there's no real easy answer for that, and not just because of the difficulty of statistics and mathematical, calculation, what have you, because, well, who do you count? Everybody's nodding along to this one. Who is in and who is out? Who do you count? You can see there is a sort of contemporary machloket around the issue of matrilineal versus patrilineal descent. What is a machloket? Thank you for asking. A machloket is a disagreement. A disagreement wherein some, Jewish denominational identities will accept people from a Jewish father or a Jewish mother, as long as you were raised Jewish, whereas the traditional rabbinic understanding from centuries and millennia ago is that it has more to do with being of matrilineal descent, that you had to have had a Jewish mother. But at the same time, we also know that the Torah doesn't slice it that way. The Torah actually has people who were descended of Jewish fathers and mothers who were not Jewish, and counts them as Jewish. So there's this whole question of who's in and who's out. You can slice it even within Judaism about what's the right kind of Judaism, the right way to do it. I think about a big debate that my synagogue in LA had when they got a request from an Orthodox group to rent space to have a men-only minyan. Karen knows where this is going. My senior rabbi at the time, Rabbi Amy Bernstein, actually sat most of that one out, that conversation out. But the debate that they had, she made the choice to sit it out. She was not silenced or anything. She made the intentional choice to let them gnaw on this one, to turn it over and over. And the decision they came down to was, much as they would love to help another Jewish group, they weren't going to host a minyan that their senior rabbi could not participate in.
They being the board of directors?
They being the board, that's right. She let them arrive at that conclusion on their own. It reminded me of an instructor and a rabbi I knew in Jerusalem who taught at Pardes. And I once asked him, I didn't know going into it because he would put his name down on stuff, but without the title, the honorific of rabbi. And then I heard one day somebody refer to him as rabbi, and I asked, "Are you a rabbi?" He said, "Well, some would call me that." A few weeks later, I saw him introduce himself again as his name, and I asked, "Why are you not using your title in the way that, like, I see other rabbis, even at this very same place, using their titles?" And he said, "Well, I recognize that there are those from more traditional backgrounds than mine who would not recognize my smicha, and out of deference and honor to them, I am not introducing myself as rabbi." This is a modern Orthodox rabbi who chose not to introduce himself and use the title of rabbi because there are people who are Haredi in Jerusalem. That was a decision too. And so when we get to this question of how many Jews are there actually, it gets really thorny about who do you count and who's in and who is out. And we as a Jewish people have spent a lot of time and energy and ink, not for nothing, on policing of boundaries, determining who counts, who does not count, who is in, who is out, what does out mean, what does in mean. There was a movement, a suggestion, because we've had this whole debate about interfaith marriage for decades and decades within the American Jewish community, certainly. There was a move in the Reconstructionist movement, I think of the 80s, or maybe it was the 90s, to introduce a new status within contemporary Judaism called Ger Toshav, which I would translate loosely almost as resident alien, for somebody who is not Jewish but part of Jewish community to formalize that as a status, which nobody asked for, and to this day nobody, I think, uses. But this question of who's in and who's out, we do burn through a great deal of energy around this question. And this is where this Haftarah of Isaiah has a curious line in it. First of all, you have to understand that Isaiah is probably, scholarship believes, 3 different people from 3 different eras. There's the Deutero-Isaiah, there's the late Isaiah, which is a lot of Haftarah material that starts around chapter 44. And actually it's believed that this Haftarah was its own Isaiah rendition, all of its own. And there's a reason for that, which is that Isaiah does something in this chapter that is basically unheard of in Hebrew Bible. Okay? Isaiah is going to give us a little bit on who is in and who is out. What page is it on? 1220, something like that. Probably 1223, I think, is probably where it ends. But I'm just reading it from another book about Haftarot. Verse 20 of chapter 66. I'm going to read the English.
23, you're right.
I'm going to read the English. And out of all the nations, said the Lord, they shall bring all your brothers on horses, in chariots, and drays, and mules, and dromedaries, and horse things, and whatever, to Jerusalem, my holy mountain, as an offering to the Lord, just as the Israelites bring an offering in a pure vessel to the house of the Lord. And from them likewise I will take some to be Levitical priests, says the Lord. Take out all of the weird horse stuff for a second.
Wow.
Karen caught it. It says we're going to take people from all over the place and make them Levitical priests. We are going to take people who are not Jewish and we are going to elevate them, in fact, to be the leaders of this entire sacrificial system. Holy cow, or horse in this case. And it depends on how you shecht it. Is it pure of blemishes and all of those things? But this is a fascinating take on it. You don't get this kind of universalism pretty much anywhere else in Hebrew Bible. The idea that we're going to extract from random people who are not Jewish, people who we are going to elevate to be in charge of all of the Israelites and run the sacrificial system and the priesthood, make them priests from random peoples out there. Yes, Karen?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I knew that non-Jews could bring offerings, but I didn't know that they could become priests. Is this like after the Mashiach comes?
So, good question, Karen. When does that happen? Because that didn't happen. You're right, that didn't happen. We actually have...
Is it a prediction for the future?
We're going to see. And it's not entirely clear. The reason I say we're going to see is that the best record we have of it from King Solomon, who actually got the whole thing rolling in the great temple itself, the first temple, King Solomon says that people who are not Jewish are allowed to sort of be along for the ride. They are allowed to pray, whatever that means, their devotional thing, but they don't get to take part in the sacrificial system, let alone lead it. We have that from 1 Kings. Okay? Moving forward, other prophetic voices. Ezekiel's an interesting one. Ezekiel says that not only... Yes, people who are of foreign countries, nations, peoples, whatever, they're not going to be Levites. They're not going to be priests or Kohanim or whatever. And neither are any of you, because the Kohanim can only be descended from the scions, the dynasty of the priestly line of Tzadok. So Ezekiel says, we're actually going to bring back and make sure that we get the exact descendants of the exact priestly line, these Sadducees in all their glory, what have you. And they're going to be the priesthood and no additions. Then you have Isaiah here who says, actually, God is going to pick anybody from amongst any of the peoples and make them, elevate them to the priesthood. So what do you do with that? What do you do with that? Do you have ideas, Hamora Karen? No, Hamora Karen's not sure.
Can I just comment that a couple sentences before that. All the people before were going to had an answer as well.
Rashi does have an answer. We're going to come back to that. But what you
So
just
what you're
pointed
saying
out is an
gathering
answer.
all the nations together will happen only after these people give up their unholy ways.
Okay. So that's one possibility. This thing becomes some sort of future utopian kind of vision of it. Rashi says something else about it, which we're going to come to, which I don't believe is in that book, but that's fine. So we rise to duty to praise the master of all. This is page 183 in the Siddur. God made our lot unlike that of other people, assigning to us a unique destiny. We bend the knee and extol and bow, acknowledging the supreme sovereign. That's that whole part that if you actually straight translate it, it's a little bit gnarly. And thanks God for not making us like the dirt people who are, not Jewish. It's really not a kind little piece. But then, go to that next part. So we hope in you, Adonai, our God, soon to see your splendor, that you will sweep away idolatry so that false gods will be utterly destroyed, and you will perfect the world by your sovereignty so that all of humanity will invoke your name and that all the wickeds will return to you repentant, and on and on and on and on. And so you get a sort of totalitarian monism. We're going to arrive at the grand one, but we're going to do it because the other is going to get wiped out.
No, not wiped
No.
out. No, they're just going
Sweep away idolatry so that false gods will be utterly destroyed.
Well, the gods will. The people will change their mindset.
A monism, an idea of a oneness. You don't need to kill them all, but you're going to wipe out that difference of distinction between us and those people.
Right, because idolatry will have been swept away.
Right. Totalitarian monism was the expression I used for it, mon, mono, one. An authoritarian sense of everybody believes the same thing. Okay? That's in the Aleinu.
Mm-hmm.
David.
Actually, just a quick comment about the Aleinu. In most Orthodox prayer books, there's actually a parenthetical sentence.
Thank you, David.
Yeah. And it's in the first.
You want to share that sentence?
Yeah. For they worship vanity and emptiness and pray to a God who cannot save.
Yep. That's right. Their Aleinu is even more pointed, the traditional language of it, than the Aleinu you will find in the conservative rendering here in Siddur Sim Shalom. If you want a far more egalitarian Aleinu, the Reform and Reconstructionist movements have produced that, but you have this interesting conservative one that's attempting to hold a lot of the rabbinic voice and authority and truth of 2,000 years ago. How great will that be? What's that?
That won't be true.
That won't be true. Suzanne is just a modicum more pessimistic, perhaps, than the Aleinu.
Any Muslim, they would say they believe in one God, and it's the same God we believe in. And we don't seem to have a lot of peace because two peoples are believing in the same God.
Sure. And I'm thinking about all of the Crusades in which, we were to be brought everyone to believe the same thing. Yeah, Russ?
How do you square that with the story of the Tower of Babel?
Ah, Tower of Babel. Everybody is just getting too close and too high and too along to God.
And thinking to the same, so
yes.
We need to have them have different languages, different places.
So we're going to give them all difference. So how do we square this utopian vision with the fact that God inflicted upon all of us that voice? That's a good question. Russ, how do you do that?
How did I come up with the question?
No, how do you do that?
Oh,
how do you square those two?
I don't know.
You can have different languages and live in different places and still not be idolatrous.
Okay, so maybe you can have different languages. We're going to flatten culture out just enough Okay? Enough that everybody feels the same and believes the same thing, but they can believe it in different languages. It reminds me actually of my college roommate who was a Maronite Christian, and in his church in Lebanon, they prayed to Allah because Allah is not purely a Muslim thing. Allah is the Arabic word for God, and so an Arabic Christian church would also pray toward Allah. Havala, was that a hand back there?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how much do you trust this prophet?
How much do you trust the prophet? Okay, we could undercut the prophet. We could say maybe this prophet is way out on a limb on their own thing,
Or maybe
doing
just this one.
just this one. That you mean not even just Isaiah, just this version of Isaiah.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe this Isaiah is pretty far out. Yeah.
How do you define idolatry?
How do you define idolatry?
Because some people will say it's not, while others will say yes.
So there you go. I think about Rambam saying that if you actually believe God was a father and a king per Avinu Malkenu, that would make you heretical. Because you have circumscribed, boxed in the possibility of what God can be, and God is the Ein Sof, the infinite. You can't say that God can't also be a mother or a queen. You're a heretic then. But Rambam backs off a little bit and says, well, this is just a metaphor. If you actually believe that concretely, that would make you a heretic. But he would square it as a Catholic as monotheism, which was an amazing theological thing. I have great and profound respect for that, but it's a way of taking multiple valences of God and making it one God, not unlike our own Sphirot within Kabbalah, by the way. 10 emanations of God and making it, it's not polytheism, don't worry about it, it's cool. It's just one God.
One difference, and again, Islam and Judaism share it, is no statues and no images.
Okay, maybe statues or images. I think about icons within Eastern Orthodoxies. I think about various other pieces of expression. Or suppose that we have words inscribed on a statue. Does that constitute an idol or something like that? I don't know. I want to go back to this, though. Everyone is going to be part of this future vision. The way that Rashi does it elsewhere is by sort of splitting the difference. And actually, by splitting the difference, what I mean, let me be more specific. Rashi exhibits and takes a stand in an act of profound epistemological humility. Rashi says, how is it going to happen? It's a secret. I don't know. He says, I don't know. He says, I don't know. It's a secret. Not just that it's a secret that he has that you all don't get to know. No, he says that it's a secret from God that we collectively don't get to know. He says that's how this actually works. That's how you square the thing. That's how you have all of the unbelievers suddenly become priests of the Israelites and whatever else. In the statement of universalism that we don't find anywhere else in Hebrew Bible, is he says that's for God to know. That's not for us to know. It's for God to know. It's a secret. And therein, I very much appreciate the way that Rashi takes a stand. The idea of taking a stand in the unknown, and the idea of making the mystery, capital M, holiness in that way. That it isn't something that we're going to think our way out of in some magical, mystical sort of approach or what have you. Actually, that you have to leave room for the unknown in your theology is a pretty profound thing. You have to leave not knowing present in what you believe not only is going on in the world today, who the people are in the world today, what constitutes idolatry and foreign gods and all of this other stuff, who is right and who is wrong. Either that maybe that rabbi should have used the word rabbi in describing himself, even though other Haredi Jews didn't think he would be a rabbi. Maybe that synagogue in LA should have allowed a minyan that was exclusive. I don't know. I'm not actually taking a stand on those things. I happen to understand where both of them come down. I agree with the synagogue in LA that how are you going to have a minyan where your senior rabbi can't participate in it if your values are egalitarianism? We'll stand there. I have a harder time standing with not calling yourself rabbi because there are some people in the world who wouldn't call you rabbi, but that's his business. I won't tell him he's wrong for that. But ultimately holding a little bit of humility around these things, not knowing, not being sure. We're so sure of ourselves. We know who is good, who is bad, what's going to be the outcome, all of these things. And I love that we get this piece of future condition, this utopian idea about who is in and who is out. Well, everybody can actually be in. And how is that going to be? We'll see.
Mystery yet to be revealed.
We'll see. A mystery yet to be revealed. But it's important enough that you have to keep open the possibility of it. That the possibility that you may not know, and that there may be a way that those who are not in can be in. Those who are out, everybody is in. That this can take on valences that we have not yet seen or understood or taken on ourselves. Rashi says, we'll see. I'll stand with Rashi on that one. Shabbat Shalom.